The theme black and white, William. What do you think about
Yes.
that?
Well, it's very important. Black and white means a lot to different people. And it's pretty poignant that we're in February, which is Black History Month. And like you, Vanessa, I have many friends who are people of color. And so I think it's a very important theme that we've come together here as a community in the Outer Cape, as well as throughout different states tonight in the United States, to relay and enjoy stories around that theme.
Yeah. And I also think of black and white as like, it's this way or that way, talking about making decisions in life or seeing things a certain way. It's kind of like the us and them, us and them, not S&M. The us and them thing that's going on, so much right now in our country, but just on a personal level too. We live, with that gray area so much. And that's always been kind of the area in between that I've been really interested in, which is a lot kind of more difficult to live in for most people, since we tend to see things a certain way.
Yeah, well, we have a great special guest to kick things off tonight. And I am just really excited for her to be here. Her name is Karith Foster, and I have known her for decades now. And we actually met each other. There she is. We met each other doing stand-up comedy in New York City. And she is now an author, a humorist, and a diversity expert. She has traveled around the United States and parts of the world doing a lecture series called Stereotyped 101. So she, out of more than me and a lot of people, has experienced and expertise in diversity. And she mixes it up with amazing humor and intelligence. She's just come out with a new book called You Can Be Perfect or You Can Be Happy. Very great title. Put your virtual hands together for Karith Foster.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. What a treat.
Oh, thank you. And here's a little thing that people aren't understanding. Karith right now is joining us from Texas, who's had some trouble in the recent days.
It's been a wild ride, and our family has been very fortunate. So no complaints here. We were better off than many of people who lost power and water and had pipes burst. So just grateful to, be coming to you from a safe, dry place.
Yeah. Karith, I am just so excited that you're joining us. We're doing another show together. And what really attracted me to your comedy when you first hit the scene, and we were both doing Caroline's Comedy Club, was how you wove in race and gender and sexuality into your comedy. And then later on, you've actually gone and applied it to a lecture series to educate, especially college students. Just tell us a little something about that.
Absolutely. I always loved and appreciated comedians. I thought they were some of the smartest people in the world, doing what I now believe is the most vulnerable art form that exists. And it was a passion. It was always a passion, but I wanted to marry my passion with purpose. And when I realized that, you really can reach people's hearts and minds by getting them to see the humor in things, by getting them to relax, but especially with something like D&I or diversity and inclusion, right? That's such a very personal and sensitive topic. People oftentimes are either coming to the conversation on the offense or the defense, but humor creates a neutral space for us to be open to having an exchange of ideas and conversations that might otherwise be really uncomfortable, but they're necessary, and they can be poignant and powerful and healing.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And I don't know, Vanessa, if you have a question, but it is a storytelling show, and I know that Karith has a story, and we want to give enough time.
I want to hear it. Yeah.
All right.
So without further ado, we're going to dedicate this storytelling space to you, and we're going to go in background. And ladies and gentlemen, Karith Foster.
Oh, thank you so much. So I am thrilled to be here. I'm Karith. I'm Black, as they, we say. When I heard that this was going to be a black or white show, I was like, oh my gosh, that's just my life story. Except I didn't know I was black until I was about 7 years old. And the reason I didn't know is because I was born in Denver. And in Denver, Colorado, our neighborhood was literally like Sesame Street. I mean, the people to the right of us were Mexican, the people to the left were black, the people across the street were white. There was a mixed race couple catty corner and a Chinese family around, in the cul-de-sac. So I get to Texas, and Texas, where we at the time, Plano, the suburb I grew up in, was extremely white. Like I used to joke in my comedy act that it had the ethnic diversity of a Klan rally. Some people appreciated that humor, some people don't. So now sometimes I say Sweden. You know what I mean when I say that. Little did I know that was going to be the story of my life for the next like 10 years or so while I was still in Plano. And I never, interestingly enough, had issues being black with white people. I had awkward moments. I had times where I was kind of the honorary black representative. People would assume during the school socials or dances that I was going to do something from So You Think You Can Dance. And they would gather around me in the school socials, in the circle, the circle. And then they start the chanting, the chanting, right? Go, Karith. It's your birthday. Go, Karith. I was like, no, it's not, but it's coming up. Thank you for saying something. I lost 18 black points that day. And trust me, those are way harder to make up than cool points. But I think the pinnacle of finding out that there was this difference between black and white, or that it was an issue, because to me the reality is it's just about melanin, right? Like some people have more melanin than others. I have a better tan than some of my best friends. Like that's really it. And yet we've made such a big deal about it. But a lot of the through line in my life, as far as being this black person in a very white world, was being told, especially by other black people, that I wasn't black enough. Now, I look in the mirror, I see my hands and myself, I'm like, what does that mean? And I know I'm not the only person who's ever experienced this, even being told I didn't sound black enough. And that has been a through line even throughout my career, going for voiceovers where they wanted me to sound blacker. And when I didn't, well, they couldn't say that because it wasn't politically correct. So instead I'd get, can you jazz it up a little? I remember thinking, so you want me to scat? One woman said, look, Karith, what we're going for is an urban sound. Can you do that? And I'm like, I'm from Plano, Texas, lady. I can do suburban for you. Will that work? But the story, the memory that I have that's so ingrained in me was when we very first moved to Texas. It was when they would cold call you, like from the department stores, to come and get your carpets cleaned and provide you with services. And they knew we just moved, and we'd had the movie men in, so we probably wanted our carpets cleaned, which my mother did. And the lady on the phone and my mother developed a rapport. And she would call every couple months to check in and see if, the time was right. Something always came up, but this lady, we'll just call her Nancy, knew that my mother, Carol, had a husband who worked for IBM. She had children in private school. She was living in Plano, Texas, of course. And they just, they got to know each other. They were cordial and they would speak. And one day, it finally worked. There was a date that my mother could have these people come in to clean our carpets. And as they were about to hang up, this woman, Nancy, says to my mother, Carol, look, Carol, I just want you to know that the men who are coming to clean your carpets are black. To which my mother, who is to this day my hero because of her response, said, that's okay, Nancy. I sleep with a black man every night. And that's all she said. She didn't offer any explanation. She didn't go into detail. She just laid it out there. And of course, this other woman was flustered and, oh, well, they'll be there at 3. And I, to this day, again, my mother's such a class act. And that was such a great line. And it just was, I think, the appropriate response to someone who could not imagine that the person on the other end of the phone might not be what they sounded like or who you thought they were. And that's been a lesson for me throughout my entire life, not just to be labeled or stereotyped, but to not do that to others. So in black and white and in lessons of love and understanding and caring and not placing anyone in a box, I want to say thank you.
Wow, that's great. That is
Karith,
awesome. Thank you, Karith.
amazing. Oh, I just love it.
That's
look,
just
that's the timer, exactly 5 minutes. What a pro. Put that volume down.
That's awesome.
Do we have our screen arrangement?
We do. We're on gallery mode, and I think it's you and me on the screen as hosts, as expected. Thank you for bearing with us, audience, for getting us through this Zoom virtual. And we are really hoping that in this year, that whether it is through herd immunity, through just everyone taking precautions and getting well, and the cases going down, that sometime during this year, we can bring the mosquito back to the Provincetown Theater live storytelling.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
But
yep.
Yeah, well, it's great. But Karith, I was thinking about what she was saying about comedy and this being such a vulnerable time to comics, but the most important kind of medicine for kind of bringing us together, which obviously I think laughter is just so powerful, and we don't get enough of it. And I just really, really appreciate that. Sometimes, happiness comes, inside out and at you a little sideways, and you just have to kind of go with it. I think it's great.
I laughed out loud, but I was on mute, but I laughed out loud at Karith. Could you just jazz it up a bit?
And it's your birthday. No,
it's your birthday. All right.
Well, speaking of which, I'm gonna say one thing. Yesterday was my birthday.
It was.
And I had to put myself back in color, because I'd be a little remiss. Oh, I'm going the wrong way, without showing these colorful, beautiful flowers my mommy sent me yesterday. Yeah. So
fantastic.
Happy
birthday, Vanessa. Yay.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, we have a special first-time mosquito storyteller coming to the virtual stage.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about Angela Willey?
Yes, I just learned a little bit about Angela this afternoon. Hi, Angela. You are, your last name is pronounced Willey, Angela Willey. It's a great name. You were born and raised in Indiana, and at the precious age of 19, which actually was the same age I was, she moved to New York City and has never left. I can understand why. She worked at a variety of jobs and started writing in 2017 after the Women's March in Washington, D.C. And she continues to find her voice and different ways to share her stories besides over cocktails, which we all really love to do around here.
Like that.
And she's married to her fabulous husband, Charlie, and is a proud mama of Martha and Jasper, first-time storyteller. So welcome, Angela.
Put your virtual hands together for Angela Willey.
Yes, girl.
Thank you. Thank you. I think a lot about the years I lived in Harlem. I lived there 13 years. We moved there in 2004, my husband and my 2 little kids. And it was what we could afford to do. And it was the space that we needed. And so we moved to Harlem. I felt like we could do it. I went into the situation. I had been raised in a very integrated neighborhood in Indiana. I had very progressive parents in the 1970s. We had all our Black friends. And so I thought, I can do this. I can move to Harlem. I'm a nice white lady with my 2 little kids, and I can go and be part of the change. I can be open. I can be honest. I can maybe find the rights and the wrongs of things. And so I started writing about it, and I talked about it, and I cried about it, and I laughed about it. And I really have realized through all these years that there was a privilege I went to with Harlem, the white privilege. And as much as I felt open and expected those arms to be open to me, they weren't. And that right there was the beginning of realizing that I had the privilege of thinking that I would be accepted. My friends downtown below 96th Street, nice liberal white people, they were like, yes, you can do this, you're good. My arrogance took over. But then a neighbor down the hall called me and said, hey, you know, your children need to call me Miss Shirley. And I was like, well, my kids always call people by their first names. They don't say Miss anybody. So I was like, Miss Shirley? But the fact was, I should have heard that because she needed that. She needed that respect from my two little white children. I don't know what my neighbors thought when we moved into Harlem. I mean, I would get people who would yell at me as I'm walking down the street and be like, get the hell out of Harlem. What are you doing here? Do you know you are raising your children unlike 90% of white America? They would yell those things and I would sort of be like, okay, well, but I'm here and I'm doing the right thing. I didn't listen very well. I talked a lot. And I was grateful for neighbors who were kind to me and who were able to embrace me in all my glory. But I went in with my white world. My daughter actually participated in a documentary called I'm Not Racist, Am I? And in it, they said that you can't be a racist if you're Black. And I sort of responded like, what? I don't know about that. I have been called, hey, fucking white bunny, what are you doing here? And that was all just because of my white skin. And so I was like, I don't know about this. But what I realized was calling me names was prejudiced. Because to really be a racist with the capital R, you need to have power. And my neighbors didn't have that power, or at least they hadn't found it yet. But I did because of my whiteness, my white privilege. I thought I knew what should and should not be done. And by being so righteous, I couldn't see or hear the truth. I couldn't understand that my neighbor Marcel maybe couldn't pay her rent because she had to decide to feed her family instead. And with my, white blinders, it was just like, what? How can you do that? I look back on that time because a lot happened. And I really feel the need to own the fact that as a white person, I have racism in me. Even though I was open and trying to do a good thing, I was white and I had that privilege. And my neighbors deserved respect. They deserve for me to educate myself, to learn the history and the beauty of Harlem before I started trying to change it. I don't really know what I've left behind. I feel like there is injury. I feel like sometimes I need to apologize to Miss Nell and to Cheryl and Melvin and to Miss Edwards, to those people who were so kind, who tried to help me, but I couldn't always see it because of my whiteness. And I really do feel the need to say, I'm sorry. My intentions were good, but the way I went about it was not right because of my white ignorance and my white privilege. So I'm sorry. I'm really working at this and I'm trying to be uncomfortable in the conversations, to listen openly, to not have the answers and to say stupid stuff sometimes. So I'm sorry, and I'm trying to do better. Thank you.
Wow. That was fantastic.
Really nice
Angela.
job, Angela.
Very
Yeah.
amazing. Amazing. We were talking before, Angela, and Angela knows that I actually, my partner and I lived in Harlem for 8 years. You nailed it on the head, because when we arrived in Harlem, and Vanessa knows this, we had a dog, and we moved from a place that had a dog run, and our neighborhood in 145th Street didn't have a dog run, and all these people had dogs. Why don't they have a dog run? And I met other dog owners who were getting tickets in St. Nicholas Park at the time, and a lot of the people who were there were white people, and they were new residents of white people, and we banded together, and we said, let's start a dog run. And then the word spread, and we had residents of Harlem, Black residents, come up to us and say, I know you're going to make this happen. And we said, why do you know we're going to make this happen? We just got here. She goes, oh no, we've been trying to make it for years. You're white. And guess what? We made it happen. And they've been trying for years, but because they had a pit bull, because they were Black, they were like, nope. Oh, wait, here's a Labrador with a white guy. Oh yeah, let's give him a permit for a dog run. Yeah, you nailed it, Angela. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. I love
Yeah.
your story too, William, or about
Oh yeah.
about that, because it was made me think of, like, when I moved to Los Angeles, I was just trying to find the picture, and I'm gonna find it before the show's over. But
Yeah.
I adopted my first dog, and he was a rescue from I think like Crenshaw, maybe somewhere, down LA. And he was a pit bull, and he was totally black and white. He was 100% black and white, with big white circle around his eye, black body, white paws, white tail. He was like, the dog from the Little Rascals. And yeah, he was so sweet. But I was nervous because I didn't really know about pit bulls, and I had this strange dog sleeping in my house. So I found the guy who rescued him, and his name was the Dog Man. And he rescued all of these dogs. And I thought might be where your story was going, but who wouldn't fight. And they just would get kicked to the curb because they were like trying to fight my little Mickey. And he wouldn't fight. So I got him, and the Dog Man was the coolest. He like rescued Mickey, and he helped me train him, and he was just like the biggest bunny rabbit.
Yeah.
And then I bought a car to match the dog. I got a black and white Fiat, and I got to find that photo. It was amazing.
That was fantastic.
Oh yeah, we lost Mickey this year.
Yeah. Well, I usually kick off, if people have come to the Mosquito, I usually kick off the Mosquito with some story around the theme. We thought Karith's story was great to set the tone for the evening. But I have a little bit of a background, not only where living in Harlem for 8 years, but I grew up actually in a fairly middle class, but mostly white suburb in Connecticut. And Vanessa, you know this. And growing up though, I never actually, we had Black families in our neighborhood. And when you're that young, you don't go to, that's a Black family. That's just a family, right? Or that's an Asian family. No, it's just a family. And my brother and I got into one of the whitest sports you can get into, tennis. It was really, really bright white before Althea Gibson and Arthur Ashe. And then obviously today it's just a very diverse sport. But we were playing in the early 80s. We were in preteens, about 11, 12, and we befriended a really amazing tennis player in our town. And he was from a Haitian family. And he wasn't Black to us. He was just Him. He was great. He had a great backhand. We played with him. I visited. He lived right next to the tennis courts. We would go over, get snacks. His mom and dad were great. But again, I'm 11 years old. I'm 12 years old. I'm not saying that, oh, I'm visiting a Black family. Now, my father grew up in rural Virginia. And every year we went down to a reunion and we loved it. Our relatives were completely loving relatives, right? And they were as nice as the rhubarb pie that they'd serve you. And we had tons of cousins there. It was great being an 11 or a 12-year-old there. We had cousins, second cousins, third cousins, cousins of cousins that we never, they kept expanding. We had never even met before, and it was really exciting. And they all went through names like AJ, TJ, JT, and they were all acronyms. That fascinated my brother and I. They're like, where's KG? Where's TJ? Do you know where AJ is? And I love the Southern accent. At that age, I wanted to fit in because I was watching lots of Dukes of Hazzard. So I thought this was really exciting. So my brother and I, one reunion, we're down there, and an older cousin, around 16, 17, AJ, I think, comes up to my brother and I and said, you want to go ride in my pickup? My brother and I are like, a pickup? I mean, we've seen them in Connecticut, but ride in one? Is that legal? So we're like, yes, let's do it. We felt like Bo and Luke Duke. We were like, let's do this. So AJ gathered like TJ, JT, all these other acronym kin, and we went and we got into the back of this rusty white Ford pickup, and AJ floored it, and it's open road, beautiful open road, no one on it, no traffic, farm fields on either side. And he's just traveling down there. And up ahead, I noticed someone walking on the side of the road. And that's the one thing that my brother and I noticed about rural Virginia, where especially this area that we frequented, that a lot of people were walking on the side of the road. And it looked like they were walking for a far distance. And the majority of them were Black people. And there was a reason for that. They couldn't afford cars. They didn't have public transportation. Maybe it was cut from the budget in the town or the city because it served mostly Black people. And we were in the back of this truck, and the truck slowly slowed down. And the man was about 50 or 60. It looked like he was walking a long way. And all our cousins shouted out a name and a word that my brother and I have never heard of in our life. It was like a foreign language. They shouted, jigaboo, hey jigaboo, jigaboo. They laughed, hooting and hollering, and then they took off. My brother and I innocently stared at each other going, what was that word? What does that mean? Oh, was it his name? Oh, they know him. They must know him. Oh, that's why they're hooting and hollering. And then we're like, something's wrong here. Why would these kids know some 50, 60-year-old Black man walking on the side of the road? Later that night, this is before internet, cell phones. I couldn't just look up what the meaning of that word was. I went up and I asked my dad that night. I said, Dad, what's jigaboo? He looked at me sternly, angry, like, said, don't ever utter that word again. It's disrespectful. But I found out what that word was. It was horrible. And what was really horrible is returning from that trip. I now didn't see my friend the same, not because I was like, oh, he is a jigaboo, but because he probably received that sometime, even though he was in Connecticut. And it was the end of racial innocence for me. And there was a very poignant moment in my life. My brother and I still talk about that moment of learning that word. Thank you. Vanessa, are you going to join
Oh
me?
my goodness, sorry. I got lost. That is intense.
Yeah,
That's intense.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah. I do feel like it was a really different time. I think it's, yeah, I felt like I didn't really start hearing language like that until maybe high school. But I don't know, it's just, it's really intense. But also I have to say, as a white person and with, you know, the level of ignorance that comes with whiteness, it's, I didn't really, you know, understand
Mm-hmm.
even the depths of that kind of stuff. You know, I used to teach at mostly POC high school in Roxbury, and most of my students were Black or, you know, Latinx or, you know, but it was hard. It was hard for me as a media teacher. I really wanted them to be, you know, have self-expression was just, you know, really paramount to the courses I was teaching. It was filmmaking, and I had an amazing group of kids who just like really wanted to be there, and I really wanted to be there with them. But they, you know, did throw around a lot of language that I didn't feel like I could say anything about, and you know, call each other the N-word as a term of endearment. And, you know, it did make me uncomfortable, but I'm kind of just sort of an observer and a facilitator of other things, you know. So it was tricky situation for me to kind of know, but I think I did the right thing by kind of just letting them be them. You know, it's hard to even talk about, because I feel like a dodo even, you know. So as a teacher, what I'm saying is even that ignorance is so challenging. I think we
have a very special local guest coming up next. Very excited, and you know her better than me. I will let you do the official introduction, but I am so impressed, and I'm sounding old, but by this young lady.
My God,
I really am. I have been when I first heard her sing, probably a couple of years ago. And maybe you do the formal honors of introducing our next guest, Vanessa.
Yeah, this is like my biggest disaster night ever on the Mosquito. I can't open her bio. It's a PDF, which my phone doesn't like at all. So I'm just gonna say this. Tianna Esperanza. She is an amazing young woman, wise and talented beyond her years. She really is a gift to our local Cape Cod scene with her music, and she's really headed in a really strong direction with her singing and her music composition, and she's going places. She was I was lucky enough to have her be my roommate for 6 weeks during this pandemic. And although she is 32 years younger than I am, I always learn so much from her. And I celebrated my birthday with her last night. So I feel so grateful and happy that she's here with us today. She's going to share her story first, and then she's going to sing for us and play. So welcome, Tianna.
Hey.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad you gave me a little bio instead. It was nice. Very grateful for you, Vanessa. We had a lot of fun as roommates. We had fun last night. Thank you, William, for everything that you said. It means so much to me for Provincetown, Cape Cod people to be so supportive of me, especially since I'm like Vanessa said, I'm usually around people who are twice 3 times my age, you know, so to have that support is so important, has been so important to get to where I am right now and where I'm going. So thank you both for having me.
Thanks for being here with
Great.
us.
Well, without further ado, we'll let you get to your story. Thank you, Tianna.
Okay, yeah. I would first like to say that pretty much everything Karith said I can completely relate to. Growing up on Cape Cod and being a tragic mulatto, as they say. But I'm going to start off. What I'd like to start off is saying my name is Tianna Esperanza Romero McClarty. And if you don't know by now, I am mixed. And my first name, a lot of African American girls are named Tianna, and then Esperanza Romero is from my Spanish side, and McClarty is from my Scottish side. And what I wanted to talk about today is the story of my story of being mixed, a little snapshot of it, because I feel that still the stories of mixed people is still very untold in America. And I think it's important to continue to have these conversations because similar to Karith, a through line in my life has been not being Black enough, but also not being white enough. So to break that down a little bit, I wanted to share first that when I tell people my name, Tianna Esperanza Romero McClarty, of course, there's always a reaction. A lot of the times it's positive, but it's always followed by, so what's your heritage? You know, and people are excited. And sometimes, but most of the time, I've just automatically said, well, you know, my mother's white and my dad is Black. And I felt I wanted to start there because on this theme of Black and white, well, the reality is that my mother is white, but she's Scottish and Spanish, and she immigrated here not only within the past 15 years. So her experience here, even though she is white and very cool and outgoing, I remember she tells me stories of when she immigrated here. It was actually a little longer than 15 years, excuse me, but she was a young girl and kids would throw rocks at her. She didn't understand English. She only spoke Spanish. So those experiences have shaped her into a person that you wouldn't consider necessarily culturally American white. And on my dad's side, there's a lot of missing history, and the culture around him is not just Black, as we say. And I think what I want to hone in on tonight is talking about the complexity that I feel we need to have moving forward in our conversations on race and anything, but how we look at people, whatever they've done, whoever they are now, making sure that we are always bringing in, hopefully, empathy, understanding with that lens of complexity, that we are human beings with so much complexity, and sometimes it feels like things are more adjacent, you know, than others, but it's all there and it's all a part of it. So being mixed, some of my experiences, just little over a year ago, I was at Lesley University where I go to school, and I was in the cafeteria pre-COVID, everything, and I sat down with a group of girls, and one girl is Latinx, and she was talking in Spanish, and I responded to her, and she said, "Oh, where are you from?" And I responded, "Well, toda mi familia es de España. My whole family is from Spain, but I was born here in Estados Unidos." And she said, "Oh, the colonizer." And, you know, it's funny because as a mixed person, one thing a lot of us come up against is we are both from a culture. We are the colonizer and we are the colonized. And that puts us in a situation that, for me, has been paranoid and chaotic and lonely. But I've also found a lot of freedom which has been a very long journey, but I'm getting there. So I've had that experience with people who I want to embrace me and to accept me, and I want to connect with and go, oh yeah, well, I listen to that music, or you know, I date guys or I date girls who are Latinx or who are Black, you know, and I want to be a part of the club, you know. But I felt sometimes really pushed away. And then just last summer now, just last year, which feels like yesterday in a weird way, I was driving from a Black Lives Matter rally that I was performing at. And this happened right on Cape Cod. And I was in the car and I got at a stoplight. I was to the left of a pickup truck. And I was just waiting for the light to turn green. And this guy, my windows were open, and the guy in the passenger just looked to me and called me a fucking stupid N-word. And I just was exhausted from the day. I have been doing a lot of Black Lives Matter rallies the whole summer, and everything with George Floyd was just emotionally, physically exhausting. And when you're doing gigs and you're wearing black and you're in the hot sun and you're kneeling, and it's been just heavy. And then to hear that, you know, was just, so I can't even describe to you what that feels like. And I know that now I have much more POC friends and peers, and many of my friends who are Black, who have darker skin than me, haven't even been called the N-word in such a horrific way. And to feel that, I remember when I was younger, I would hang around some of my Black friends and feel like they would say, you know, the N-word in a very casual way, like, you know, as we do in songs and such. And I always felt like, can I say that? You know, is that okay? Like, I don't know how to do it, you know, because I grew up so white. And then to also be on the other side, where to white people, I am that N-word and I am nothing more. And when I heard the story of OJ by Jay-Z, which I don't know if any of you know, but in the lyrics, it says, and I quote, light nigga, dark nigga, phone nigga, still a nigga. And what he's saying there is, you can probably, you know, you can tell right away just that you can be all dressed up, you can be whatever you want, but to white people, you're nothing more than that. And what I've found is, as a mixed person, again, being pushed away from, or feeling pushed away by Black people here in America, by white people here in America, by Latinx people in America, I have at times grown really bitter and really angry. And it's a very, very lonely place to be. But I have found so much freedom in realizing that I am not bound by any of that. And we really don't have to be. I'm not bound. I don't have to be bound by my culture or bound by my race. I can be proud of being a Black woman. I am so proud of that. But I also can say I am so much more than that too. And I have all these interests and I have so many parts of me. And I want to look at everybody that way. And I think that as we move forward in our conversations on race and as we move forward in the movement, that I think it's important to recognize that, especially in Black communities, that we are beautiful, we are proud to be Black, but we can't go perpetuating the one drop rule on each other either. I mean, we need to understand that Jay-Z can exist while Tracy Ellis Ross can exist. We can be all of these different beautiful things, and that's what, you know, what white people have really gotten from the beginning. Like William said, where it's not a Black family or an Asian family. When you see a white family, you say, oh, they're a family. And that's, I feel, what we need to focus on achieving, you know, again, while still being proud, of course, of being Black. So I've had lots of thoughts on that for a long time, and I hope I'm not going too long, but again, I feel that it's so important. And as I learned I study therapy at Lesley, that approaching everybody in that way of complexity, of empathy, of understanding, we can grow to give ourselves so much more freedom and freedom for other people. So in conclusion, I want to say that I don't have any time for anyone to tell me who I am, but for people to look at people with more complexity, with more understanding, makes all the difference, especially for those like me. And one last thing, on Valentine's Day, I was thinking a lot about Mildred and Richard Loving. And I don't know if you know about their case, but one thing that they fought for was not just their own love, their marriage, but also for the legitimization of their mixed children. And we have been called horrific things from the beginning as a mud race, as bastards, as delegitimate in every way. And that feeling, again, of feeling delegitimate by your own Black friends, your own Black peers, you know, by your own white family, friends, peers. I think I have learned to say no, no, thank you. So thank you. And now I am going to sing a song for you. Vanessa, I don't know if you want to interject.
Just wanted to acknowledge you. That was beautiful. We'd love to hear you.
Thank you. I'm going to sing a song now I wrote it about 5 years ago, and it's about a man named Louis H. McCaw, who started the first African-American bookstore in America, right in Harlem. So I know a lot of talk tonight has been about Harlem, and here's another amazing person. The guitar might be a little low, but you can hear it well enough. Now this song is about a man named Louis. Louis H. McCaw, to be exact. Now Louis owned a little bookstore in Harlem. And one day while he was sitting in his bookstore, some Black boys came in with their fists up screaming, "Black power, Black power." He said, "Look, sons, I'd like to straighten you out." He said, "Black is beautiful, but Black ain't power. Knowledge is power, sons." Yeah. 'Cause you can be as black as a crow. You can be as white as snow. But if you don't know, then you ain't got no dough. You can't go and yeah, that's for sure. Ooh, yeah. Now, Louis also said that when the white man landed here, he brought two weapons. One was the Bible, and the other was the gun. If he didn't humble you with the Bible, he crumbled you with the gun. And that's for praising the Lord and passing ammunition all over the world. Yeah, see, you can be as black as a crow. You can be as white as snow. But if you don't know, then you ain't got no dough. You can't go in there. Yeah, that's for sure. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Now, as I was listening to Lewis's words, I thought a couple of my own. The human collective strives to be connected. Our minds drive the respective intellect, our souls no regret. Our bodies the joy of no neglect. We are constrained by societal norms, born with individuality to only conform, and the cycle goes on in sync. In sync. So I think what Lewis is trying to say here is live life, love life, be smart, but take your piece, don't play your part. Yeah. Because you can be as black as a crow, you can be as white as snow, but if you don't know, then you ain't got no dough. You can't go in there. Yeah, that's for sure.
Wow. This is simply amazing, Tianna.
Oh
Wow.
man, if you want to turn on your mics and clap, go right ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thanks for having me.
Beautiful.
That was overwhelming, actually. That was really beautiful. Yeah, it's really beautiful.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
If you want to come back on for a second, maybe if you have a little bit you want to say about that song,
Yeah.
want to say, you know, unless the
Yeah.
song pretty much speaks for itself, but
The song,
you know.
the song speaks for itself, but I loved learning about this man because his story is largely unknown. And he was a huge influence on Malcolm X, on Martin Luther King. I mean, he was like the father to the civil rights activists that we know today. And I think Karith and I might connect, you know, just from the little I know of her. I think, you know, on education, I'm definitely another woman all for education. And Louis H. McCaw went through a lot of different phases of Black power thought. He went from Pan-Africanism to, he landed on education is key, period. And I, as a mixed person, I watched him speak, and it just, to have something that wasn't about race, to have something focused on education, you know, and on housing reform, on getting communities clean water, whatever culture you're from. I mean, things like that. I remember feeling like that's something I can get behind because it's not divided by race, you know, it's about human rights. And he was the first person that I listened to because, I mean, I completely respect and love and listen to Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Angela Davis, but there was a spirit of all of them, of course, that at times was, when I was listening 5 years ago, was sometimes very Pan-African, very Black power. And again, there was a time for me where I thought, I'm not Black, you know, like, not that I didn't want to be, but I was like, everybody's telling me I'm not Black, so I can't get behind this, or they don't even want me to be a part of this in my mind. So I thought, well, this guy seems like he would like me, you know, if that makes sense in my like mind. And I was like, well, I can get behind this because I was passionate. And now, I didn't really say this in my story, but now I don't take the bullshit of I can't tell you how many African-American people who I have grown to love, but have told me, oh, you're not Black, sometimes, just point blank. Not even, never mind, you're not Black enough, but you're not Black, you know? Or some have said, oh, you are Black. And there's like, you're not white, you're black. And this is not this. I hope this does not come across as anything like I fully am proud to be Black and to be supportive, and I mostly have a POC community, but I think now I don't take that anymore. I'm like, this is, and I think Louis H. McCall was one of the first signals for me. You know, it was just like, you are still part of this movement, even if you're white. You know, I think he was one of the first people I listened to that had that movement. And again, you can see now his influence on Martin Luther King, on Malcolm X. I mean, by the end of their days, they had that belief that we all need to hold hands together, you know. And if you have a chance, go check him out. I think he only has one living relative, so his story hasn't really been told, but he was a big part of Harlem and big part of the movement. So
you really honored
song,
him with
thank
that
you for
song.
Educating us about him. Now, Tianna, for our audience, where could they find your music? Where could they download it and listen to more of your musical selections?
Next year at the Grammys.
Yeah, I know.
We shall see, but you can find my music. My stage name is Tianna Esperanza. It's probably written there when I stop my video too. So if you just look up that name, you can find my website, should come right up. My Spotify, iTunes, everything. You can find me on any streaming platform. I do have a manager now. I can write in the chat that company, Holly Lohman. Holly, I work with Red Light Management now. So if you're interested in booking or whatever, you can contact her. So I can put that in the chat too. So,
fantastic. Thank you again so much, Tianna. That was really lovely.
That was beautiful. You're beautiful. Thank you so much. So much.
And I did forget to mention when Karith was on. So if anyone's interested in finding her book, I believe, Karith, and correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, you can find her book, You Can Be Perfect or You Can Be Happy, on Amazon or in local bookstores. So check those two very talented, very accomplished storytellers out. But keeping the local storyteller flavor alive now, we have a very special storyteller guest who has done The Mosquito before. She is a poet and a novelist. She has performed all over the Outer Cape, all over Cape Cod. And she's actually, I just recently saw her at the Muse Coffee House, where she's a regular performer. She's performed here on The Mosquito several times. So please, everyone, put your virtual hands together or real hands together for a special storyteller, Sylvia Peck.
Hello, there she is.
Freedom Summer in 1964 happened in the years following what was the most important summer of my life, which was the summer before I started kindergarten. That summer and the year after that, I met two men, Lucius Walker, whom I called Lou Walker, and Joe Tatarera. And both of them became my friends in a year that was filled with songs and hootenannies and meetings and parties and picnics and groups of people meeting to do things they didn't understand, but I was welcome at, and often I could scramble up on anyone's lap or walk around, and I knew I was safe, and it was a wonderful feeling at 5. Lou Walker ran something called the Northcott Neighborhood House on the north side of Milwaukee, and my mom directed the children's program there. So I got to go to day camp there in the summer. And what I remember of it was one very dusty swing set on a corner of the block. And mostly we had battles there. And the battles were, well, we ranked each other by appearance. And because I was the youngest and smallest, I mostly listened. So I didn't wind up in the bottom of the pile with my face in the dirt any more than I could avoid. Lou, after that summer, came to our house a lot. And I learned songs with him and with all the people who were over at our house. And my favorite song was called He's Got the Whole World in His Hands. And if you were little, it didn't really matter. Even if your hands were little and small, you would hold them up because you could hold the whole world. And at the end of the song, you would join hands with everyone in the room and you would link your fingers with everyone in the room. And that meant that you could link your hands around the world. And I loved that. And I really loved Lou. One night before one of our meetings, I was given a job of folding napkins, which was something that my mother trusted me to do at 5. And he was helping me and we were in the kitchen. And I was just staring at him, even though I knew you weren't really supposed to stare. And he said, "What are you looking at?" And I said, "Oh, you have such beautiful teeth." And he said, "Really? Well, what is it about my teeth that are so beautiful, baby?" And I said, "Oh, they're so white." And he pulled me onto his lap at that point. And he goes, "Well, I think maybe they look so white because my skin is so dark." And I felt absolutely happy in that moment. Nobody had ever talked like that to me before. And I knew that we weren't just talking about teeth just then. I knew he knew that I loved him. And I think he picked me up and hugged me right then. And it was a searing moment for me of my place in the world, in a world that I was safe in. Later, Joe Tatarera, who was an African student at Marquette University, getting a doctorate in biology, also started coming to our house. And Joe was a very big man. He was taller than my father. And he was very formal and very polite. And he used to always wear a white shirt and a coat and tie, even in the summer. And he started off coming to our house for Thanksgiving. And then he came at Christmas and he helped us decorate the tree. And he was just always coming over for dinner because Lou had his own family, but Joe was far from home. He was from Rhodesia and he was far from home here. And so he was at our house a lot and he liked best to sit in a corner and just watch everybody in the room. And he just would have this huge smile on his face. And he was there that year and the next year and the next. And I think they were offering him a position at Marquette, but there was a lot of unrest in his country at the time. So he decided to go back to Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe. And I later learned from my mother that either because of what he was doing when he got there or trying to do, he was assassinated. My mother always gets really sad at that part. And when I was thinking about this evening, I wondered if maybe Joe learned to trust us with our winter faces in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that he trusted us and that maybe that's what got him killed. Still, when I think about Lou or I think about Joe, I think that neither of them felt ashamed to have spent even a moment of kindness with a small child, as they did with me. And that neither of them regretted that, and neither of them ducked away from my eyes when I looked into them, loved them. There's a song from South Pacific, which everybody knows, certainly. Now we are reminded of it. And the song is, "Oh, you have to be taught how to hate." And that's true. That's maybe part of it. But nobody has to teach you how to love. And being loved back is a great gift. And I thank them forever for that. Thank you.
Wow.
Beautiful job, Sylvia.
That was amazing. That was so great.
Yeah, it really
That
struck
was-
me, that part about looking into their eyes. You know, it's such a funny thing. It's such a complex thing to do. And I would argue that, you know, maybe they did teach you to love, or you helped teach them. You know, I feel like that's part of it. It's
and how lucky you were to have these two men in your lives.
Mhm.
Not just one, two. Like,
Yes.
wow.
Mhm.
That's wonderful. And your space, your home looks so cozy right now. I have to say, it's like it's winter and you have a complete winter, like you're just a, like the Cape Cod winter look down, and it's so cozy. I want to come in, snuggle in to that room with you.
yeah, I feel like I look like I'm in a closet with a flashlight on my face.
Yeah, well, I have this blur background, so no one knows where I am.
Yeah, that's good. That's true. Very mysterious, William. Well, thank you, Sylvia.
Right. Thank you so much. So Vanessa, are you going to take us home this evening?
Am I going to tell a story?
Yes.
You know, I'm going to break all of the rules that I make our storytellers follow in our workshops. I'm going to apologize in advance for my story not being good enough. I'm going to use props. I'm probably going to go all over the map, but I will tell a story. And
That's fantastic.
like I talked about before, I really, you know, I feel like things are black and white up into a point in life, right? I feel like that stopped when I was 5 years old. I felt like I knew, you know, I knew what was going to happen. I knew what I could expect. I knew that, you know, my mom was here, my dad was there, my twin brothers were making me crazy. And this was my house, and these are my clothes, and this is my neighborhood, and these are my front steps that I can sit on and smell the flowers at. But at that point in my life, about that age, I started to really be thrown into the gray areas, and that was extremely uncomfortable for me. It was around the time that my father ended up leaving home, and little did I know that things were not so black and white for him the entire time. And neither was it for any of us, only we didn't know. We were all living in the gray. He did have to make a very black and white decision at that time. And it was either to jump off a bridge or to come out as a gay man in the early 70s. And luckily he came out as a gay man. Now, that was a very gray area for him, but it also became a very gray area for all of us. So my dad was my soulmate. I felt very, very close to him. That was never a question. Black and white as day can be. The one of the things, I think maybe the only thing he ever saved from me that I gave him was a card that I found after he died, that was a birthday card to him, signed Old Moldy from me, because we were so much alike. And I remember him laughing and loving that card so much. And it was really cool to find that card. So, you know, I've missed him very, very much over the years. My dad was a photographer. He was a modern day Renaissance man. Everything he touched kind of turned to gold, and then it kind of turned to shit. And, you know, he was a hairdresser. He was an amazing hairdresser. And he would often, you know, take off and go to Korea to buy hair for wigs, for which he had a really strong business, a lot of clients in downtown Boston. And I always thought, I'm going to be a hairdresser. That's what I'm going to do. And one time I told him that, he said, don't you dare, I'll kill you. I was like, oh, okay. Well, then I guess I'll be an actor. He's like, okay, fine. Don't ask me why. So, but when I was a kid, he gave me my first camera. It's a Niker Mat from the 60s. I was born in 69, and I think this camera was too. Still in the same case. Paint splattered on the back. And my father took a lot of black and white photos of me and my brothers when we would go over to his swanky loft in Boston. And this is one of the pictures that my dad took of me with this camera. Black and white. He had a dark room in his loft, and I always hated this picture of myself. I thought I looked like a boy. I hated the gap between my teeth. I hated my eyebrows, and I wish I could have them back so badly now. But I now really, really love this picture so much. And of course, I'd let him do whatever he wanted to my hair. So he cut it real short. And I just kind of, you know, let him do, you know, anything he wanted with with my hair. Wouldn't even look in the mirror. Sometimes he'd cut it in front of a lake, and I'd be like, okay, great. But yeah, so, you know, there did come a time when, you know, I was probably 10 years old in this photo, and I have lots of black and white photos of me over the years from him and of my brothers. And as I made my way to college and I did decide to study acting, what I wanted to do with my life was always very black and white at that point. My decisions were really clear to me. I knew who I was, I knew what I wanted. And I did go to study acting. Well, during that time, my father became sick with AIDS. And this was about 1989 when I sort of figured it out. And there was a night where we thought he wasn't going to make it through the night. So I flew home from New York, went to his hospital, and he was miraculously okay. He was going to go home. And I just instantly said, I'm dropping out of school and I'm coming home with you. And he said, no, that's no life for a young girl like you. And I said, I want to. And he just said, okay. So without going into a lot of details, that's what I did. And there was no other choice for me. I had put a little thought into this just before that, when I just turned 21, and I'd gotten pregnant and faced one of the most gray decisions of my life, which was whether or not to have this baby. I didn't feel ready. I wasn't with anybody who was interested in doing that. I felt extremely selfish at the thought of not, and I already felt a very deep connection with what I think was probably going to be a girl. And I had an abortion just before my 21st birthday, and I got a phone call from my brother saying that his girlfriend was pregnant at exactly the same time as me. And I sort of felt like I needed to do this, and I needed to be available, and I took care of my dad. In retrospect, there were so many gray things that happened in those areas in between my decision to do that and my willingness to do that. And after my father died, I did go back to school, and I dove right into my theater studies, and I created a piece that was called Between the Black and White, and it explored those moments of the gray areas, what happens between the time that the light switch is on and off, and what happens in the gray. And I can happily say that that's where I've lived uncomfortably but profoundly ever since. And that's my story. Thanks.
Wow. That's amazing.
No, thank you.
That is from the creator and founder of The Mosquito, right there, Vanessa. What an amazing life experience you've had. I've had the pleasure of listening to your stories for years, and they're very profound and poignant.
Well, thanks. Now that I got it out there, I'll work on it.
Yeah. So listen, let's storytellers, can you get off, put your video on so everyone can see you together?
Yeah, let's get our storytellers.
And we can give a big applause to you. Thank you. We had Karith Foster, we had Angela Willie, we had Tianna Esperanza, and we had Sylvia Peck. Thank you so much. And thank you, audience, for bearing with us on our technology troubles and joining us in this virtual, very important virtual Story Slam. And please join our email list. Go to the mosquitostory.org. You can join any of the various channels. We have a lot of our shows on storytelling podcasts on SoundCloud, but they're available also in Apple Music or anywhere you prefer, Spotify or things like that. And again, as we said, we'll probably do another virtual show before we have to get back, or hopefully get back into live storytelling later this year. But follow us and keep up to date. Follow us on Facebook or on Instagram, and we'll let you know when our next event is. Anything to add, Vanessa?
Yeah, well, you know, just I want to thank our storytellers again. If the audience would like to turn on their mics and give a round of applause, I'm sure they'd be happy to.
Microphones.
And their microphones, I'm sure they'd be happy to receive that since they can't see any of you. And it's
Thank you all. Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this will be rebroadcast. We'll put it on
Angela.
All right, Skeeters and storytellers, thank you so much for all of this. I look forward to watching it again.